Hi, John. What's up?
Howdy there, New York City.
John, is this a new hat?
Oh, of course it is. This is a new hat because I'm not just John, co-host of Box Office Time Machine. I'm now John, the Box Office Wrangler. The toughest down-home country boy box office wrangler that's ever existed. And maybe you don't get that, New York City, but I do things a little bit different.
It's from like a Halloween store, right? Spirit of Halloween. You got this hat left over for Halloween.
We don't need to debate where I got my hat from. All we need to know is
Party
that
City.
this is my true, authentic persona, and that this is the way things are going to be now. I'm hosting this
Walmart?
way, whether you like it or not, because we're here today to talk about Twisters.
But we're also talking about True Lies.
I know, because I'm not actually a tornado wrangler. I'm a spy.
Oh boy, bring back the hat. I prefer the cowboy.
Yeah, I know. I was going to try to do an Austrian accent, but I can't do it.
Toot toot.
Toot toot Dana!
Toot toot Dana. Jump.
Jump, Dana!
Wow.
Are we going to get a
Wow.
copyright strike on that classical music from the tango?
I don't think the tango is copywritten. It's not made by Disney.
At
I
one
think
point,
we're okay.
At one point, I knew the name of that song because as a kid, I loved True Lies and I loved that song and I had it on my iPod.
Aw,
song.
that's so sweet.
But we're not talking about True Lies yet.
Ooh.
First, because we're talking about Twisters before that, but mostly because we haven't introduced ourselves or the show yet. So why don't we start with that? Hi, everybody. I'm John.
Hi, I'm Veronica. I'm still waving.
And we are the hosts of Box Office Time Machine, the show where we talk about the number one movie at the box office, either from the present or a time in the past. And today, we're doing our original format of doing a new and old movie in one episode.
Wow, how exciting. All because I had to get my wisdom teeth removed.
Yeah, it's true. Veronica, have you listened to that recording that you sent me?
Yeah. I mean, I did. That's what I sounded like.
Veronica said, "Oh, hey, I'm getting my wisdom teeth out, but don't worry, I'll still be able to record that night." And I was like, it's been a few years since I got my wisdom teeth out, but I'm pretty sure you're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, basically my jaw and lips were numb for until about 10 p.m. that day. So,
If you have not yet followed our wonderful social media presence, either on Instagram or YouTube, where once again you can watch all these episodes in video form, you missed out on this recording that I had Veronica do to apologize to all of you for not having an episode out last week like we were supposed to. Let me see if I can pop this out for both of us to listen to right now.
we don't need to do that. We're wasting time. Let's talk about Twister.
Okay, well, I'm editing this week's episode, and I am going to edit that audio right here.
Wow.
Unless I forget.
Hi, dear listener. It's Veronica from the present. I just had my wisdom teeth removed, so feeling loopy, and I cannot feel my lower lip. So we're not gonna talk about True Lies today, but maybe we'll talk about 2 movies next time. Toot, toot. I'm drooling.
So,
Ooh.
if you didn't just hear Veronica speaking very loopy, then I fucked up while editing. Feel free to send me nasty comments. But before that, it's time to talk goddamn twisters. Not 1 twisters, 2 twisters.
Twins! Twins! Oh boy. Oh boy. John, what is your history with the Twisters parenthetical franchise?
Well. I saw the first Twister movie from was it 96, the Jean de Bont classic. I saw that not in the theaters. I saw that as a kid, and I remember thinking it was fine. I rewatched it a few years ago with a woman I was dating, and I remember thinking, "Oh, this is so much stupider than I remember." And I just want to do a preface to everything I say for the rest of the Twisters section of this episode. The people I saw this movie with, they enjoyed it. And I think that's fair. I think that's fair because this is exactly what I've been asking for. This is a big blockbuster movie that doesn't have a bunch of franchise bullshit. It has a beginning, a middle, an end, a clear story, a simple story, simple archetypical characters, but clearly defined, well-acted characters with clear arcs, set in competently filmed, exciting action set pieces. It is exactly what I want, and I get why people are enjoying this. And I say, for those reasons, I'm happy that this movie is making money. I think it's a step in the right direction. That being said, there were problems that I have with the movie that I think might be specific to me. So I'm going to do a preface right now that says, yeah, it's a dumb, fun movie. And now for the next 40 minutes, I'm going to be making fun of it. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Veronica, what's your history with Twister?
I have no history. My twistery is non-existent. It started, there was a Universal ride for Twister.
Did you ever go on that?
There?
It was a show.
Yeah, I went on that. Yeah. So I remember enjoying that. I never saw the movie, even though I loved Helen Hunt and Mad About You. I was mad about you. So kind of surprising. But yeah, never saw it. Mostly just know of the cow. And I did not want to see this. I was very happy we were not going to talk about it. But faith and wisdom teeth would have it that we are talking about it. It was kind of what I expected it to be. And I'll say more later.
I never got to go on the Twister show at Universal. I'm upset I didn't. Mostly because I think it's very funny that it was called Twister: The Ride, and yet it wasn't a ride. I think that's funny. It was just a show.
Yeah, it wasn't it. Yeah, it was. Was it the thing that was repurposed for the Fast and Furious show later, or no?
Maybe, but it might have been. But yeah, it was a special effects thing. They had backdraft the show earlier. But that was fun. Okay. I'm going to say there's a problem I have with the Twister franchise, a franchise now of 2 movies. And There are a number of other things that bothered me about this movie. Not enough to not like it. Once again, I don't not like this movie at all. And I think it's fun. And anyone who says they had a great time, I'm going to be like, yeah, that was a good time. Good for you. Not in a condescending way. Genuinely, I get the fun of this movie. But I think there's one main problem I have with the Twister franchise that I have a really hard time getting over. I love dumb disaster movies, but the Twister franchise is structured where it's the only disaster film where the main characters actively choose to be inside the disaster for no reason. They go, oh, look, a twister. And they run into the twister. And then they go, oh, my God, we're in a twister. Let's get out of this twister. And I find that very silly. It's like if Titanic started with Jack and Rose saying, you know, it'd be cool. Let's ride right into an iceberg and make this boat sink. Oh, no, we went into an iceberg and the boat sinks.
Yeah, a leopard ate my face, the movie.
It's like if Cocaine Bear starred the guy from Grizzly Man. It's just, I have a slightly hard time empathizing with the Storm Chasers.
Well, yeah. I don't know. What was the goal of the ones in the original movie? Was it also to stop twisters?
I think there was a little bit more focus. All the characters were kind of scientists in the first one. It's been now 4 years since I saw it, but they're all scientists. So there's a little bit more of a purpose for them to be there. And I'm kind of joking, but one of my major problems with this movie is the new one is the setup with the YouTubers. So a quick rundown. They wanted to be very clear that this was not a sequel. Most likely because Bill Paxton has died. This is kind of our memorial Bill Paxton podcast because he should have been in both these movies more. One, because he's the best part of True Lies, and two, because he should still be with us for Twister 2. But they made it clear while making this that they were not making a sequel. They're making a remake, but they don't want to admit it because I think remakes are a bad word now. So this is the weird example of I honestly think the word reboot fits, even though there's only one movie.
Would you say it's a requel?
No, because it's not one of the fucking legacy garbage. And has caught on so much.
It just rolls off the tongue.
A ton of different elements are still there. So basically in this one, we have Kate, played by Daisy Edgar Jones from Normal People and that movie I want to see that I haven't seen yet with Sebastian Stan. Fresh.
Well, she was in is it Daisy something in the Six?
Was she?
No, but she was in that show. She was the lead singer in that Fleetwood Mac.
I think you're thinking of someone else. You are thinking of someone else. You're thinking of.
Am I?
Yeah, no, she was not in that. She was in Fresh, Where the Crawdads Sing.
Oh, okay, never mind.
But I first caught her in Normal People.
Who am I thinking of?
Normal People, in which she was very good, although the TV show kept going out of its way to be like, God, she's so ugly. Because the book character is ugly. And
I mean, in the book, it makes sense. Yeah, casting someone who looks like her seems pretty ridiculous.
I thought she was great.
Is she Irish?
She is definitely not American. And I was curious in this movie how she felt on set when they introduced the character who's like, I'm the sniveling, cowardly British man. Lottie-tottie-taw. Are we having tea and crumpets later? While she's sitting there doing her fake American accent.
She is British. She's from London.
But anyway, she in this movie is from down home, Oklahoma. And she plays Kate. And Kate, just like Helen Hunt in the first one, has a cold open, dark past. 2024 is the summer of very dumb movies featuring a Kiernan Shipka cameo.
I was so sad about that. I was like, oh, Kiernan Shipka's in this movie? I love this movie already. And then they kill her.
If you want to see her have even less screen time, check out Longlegs. In which the scariest part of the movie is the wig they put on her head. I'll maybe talk about long legs later in this podcast.
Whoa.
But, sorry, I'm supposed to be doing a summary. She plays Kate. Instead of Helen Hunt losing a dad, Kate loses all her friends. She was at grad school and they were making special science to stop tornadoes, but then they all died except for she and Anthony Ramos playing, what is his character's name? Javi. Anyway, 5 years later, she's traumatized, so traumatized that she has left the good, honest, kind people of Oklahoma to live with the fucking scum of New York City.
Gasp, double gasp.
Assholes of New York City who talk about tornadoes but don't really understand. But then Javi comes back. He says he's got funding for science. They're going to go back.
He's got funding for
science. They go back. But guess what? There's crazy cool YouTubers featuring Glenn Powell as... What the fuck's his character's name?
Twist. I don't know.
Tyler Owens. Oh, hell yeah, that's a name. Tyler Owens and a bunch of kooky YouTubers that are just like the kooky storm chasers in the last one. So, same as the original Twister, we have kooky, folksy storm chasers and corporate business storm chasers. And eventually, of course, our cool characters leave the corporate ones to join up with the other ones, and they run away from tornadoes. So it is kind of like
no, they run towards tornadoes.
Then they run away tornadoes. Okay, I have a lot to say here. I don't know where to start. I'm gonna give my big pitch for a big change that I want to change with this movie. And then we can get in, because everything else is just little nitpicks. The one thing that, other than the silly thing about not liking that, like finding the storm chasers silly in general, I think this movie missed a step with the YouTubers. That's Glenn Powell's group. I found them, just the concept of them. I loved the idea of these fame chasing, live streaming YouTubers. I think that's hilarious. But in any other movie, those characters that's an unlikable trait. People who are live streaming for fame and selling merchandise. And it's it's not a ruinous unlikable trait. It's the kind of trait that you give characters who would eventually be like redeemed. And the movie knows that they are unlikable, but instead of going through the arcs of like having them learn to not be as fame chasing and not be as reckless, instead it very inorganically is like, actually, they don't really care about YouTube. They only do YouTube to save lives. And actually, Glenn Powell isn't a cowboy. He's a scientist, and the smartest scientist ever. And that was so inorganic and so annoying that it actually made me dislike the characters more. So I have a pitch for restructuring this movie. It's too late to do it. But here is my pitch that I think would have made this story better. I think our scientists, she should have been working with the evil science people from the beginning, then found out they were evil, or like an evil businessman bought out their company, and then she makes a big stink and they get forced out. That's the beginning of the movie. They get forced out of their own company. Now they're in a race to beat the rich company that wants to use the tornado data for evil. But they have to prove that they can do it better. But they lost all their equipment because they don't work with the rich people anymore. Uh-oh, the only people they can work with, these wacky YouTubers. So now these scientists got to work with the YouTubers, and then have Glenn Powell's flaw be that he is a fame seeker, that he is a narcissistic fame seeker. And then by working with Daisy Edgar Jones, like have him then realize, oh yeah, this is serious business and people are getting hurt and I need to help them. And then through that, make him become a better person. We also get to spend more time with the YouTubers and meet them as real characters and not just quirks. not just guy from TV on the radio, but like real characters. That's my pitch.
Oh, that's who he was. I was like the guy from Rachel at the getting married.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah. That clicks.
We can get to what do you think of my pitch, and then we can get to your general thoughts on the movie.
I guess it would be fine. I mean, it was kind of jarring that, like they are set up as these kind of fame-hungry Dumbos, and then like the next scene they're like, oh yeah, we actually are selling these t-shirts. By the way, still selling the t-shirts at
to the victims.
To the victims, but also giving them a pack of Lays and a water. It was just odd, but it's definitely not my main issue with this, and I don't think it would have fixed my problem with the movie.
What's your main problem with the movie?
I think they're kind of twofold, maybe. I think I don't like Glenn Powell, is what I've arrived at.
I forget, have you seen Hitman?
I've seen Hitman, which I also did not like, despite people loving it. And I saw him in Maverick as well, which I think was probably Maverick. His best role. He just seems like very smarmy and fake. I, for a second, did not buy him as a compassionate person at all. Like, I kind of bought him as like the smug asshole, but then like, no, I don't buy him as a compassionate person, I think. And it didn't work for me on Hitman, and it didn't work for me here. I also think Daisy Edgar Jones was pretty bad. She was delivering the Dakota Johnson and Madam Web performance, in my opinion. It was like such terrible delivery. I never like believed for a second that she ever wrote a science notation in her life. Like, it was, I believed Moira Tierney was a farmer more than I believed that Daisy Edgar Jones did science. It was ludicrous. Also, so that is one problem. Second problem is that a twister is not a person. A twister is not sentient. A twister does not have an agenda. A twister is literally a metaphysical weather phenomenon. And so a twister can do one thing. A twister can twirl very, very fast and get people in its wake, or things, or cows, or chickens, or trucks, or whatever it is. And that's it. So the whole movie is just us like seeing basically the same thing happen. Sometimes it happens with a fire, sometimes, but it's essentially the same thing. So it was just very, I don't know. I mean, it's just like, for me, a very hard thing to make compelling and interesting and surprising. And I feel like they just haven't done it. I don't really have an idea as to how to do it. I mean, if you wanted to go really weird with it, maybe the corporation is the thing that actually creates the twisters, and then there's maybe like
Geostorm.
I mean, it's ludicrous, but this is also ludicrous. At least like that one, maybe like the villain would not be nature or whatever, because it doesn't really tell us much about humanity. So I think like these are my like two main beefs with it. I don't know, maybe the original movie is more exciting. I assume Helen Hunt is a more compelling presence, as is Bill Paxton. So I'm sure even like the same movie with different leads, I might have enjoyed more, but yeah, yeesh.
I actually do think, while I do think I enjoyed it a little more than you did, I do think we are talking about the same problems, because the same issue you're talking about tornadoes goes into the problem with the characters seeming dumb, because tornadoes don't do anything. They don't have a motivation. and they just stay in kind of one, like, slowly moving down the countryside. And we say this is a couple of coastal elites who've never had to dodge from no twisters. Fair enough. But, like,
Yeah.
I think most disaster movies, earthquakes don't have motivations. Volcanoes don't have motivations. But the thing is, most disaster movies have the characters getting trapped somewhere. You know, the giant wave of Poseidon Adventure, they are then trapped in the boat. You're trapped with lava everywhere. I haven't seen Volcano.
I mean, Titanic. They hit an iceberg. You know, Dante's Peak, Volcano, all of those things. Armageddon.
Twisters, this franchise, they're the most compelling parts are when they're trapped somewhere. But most of the time, they're not. And the decision when they made the first Twister movie of like, okay, well, how can we get around that? I know there'll be scientists who actively chase the tornadoes. And I just don't find that particularly compelling because the first movie does spend more time being like, are these people crazy? Is this an insane hobby? I know they're saying they're scientists, but is this an insane hobby? Like Bill Paxton's character has like Helen Hunt's his ex, and he has a new wife who's like, what are you doing? She's actually more fun than that. One thing I'll give the first one credit. I think they could have easily made her the shitty wrong person.
Is that Jean Triplehorn? Is that the wife?
I don't think that's who it is. Are you thinking
Never
of
mind.
Big Love? You're thinking of Big Love with Bill Paxton
Yeah,
and Jean Triplehorn?
I'm thinking of Big Love. Oh, yeah. Maybe I am, you know?
Yeah, Twister, most people forget that Twister is about polygamy. No.
Sorry, Jamie Gertz.
Jamie Gertz,
I don't know why I confused her.
But, so they have that problem, and then you get to the Glenn Powell of it all. I like Glenn Powell. I think he is a movie star in the making. I think he's very charming. But I think Top Gun Maverick found his role. He is the asshole who redeems himself. And this story should have played that same story. He should have just been a narcissistic asshole who then learns to be a hero. Maybe he sacrifices himself for Javi and Kate to get together. Maybe that's the way the very half-hearted love triangle plays out. But yeah, I just think something's missing here to make this movie really hit for me. But again, I still understand why people are enjoying it.
I mean, it's very stupid. People, I don't know. People were laughing at the screening I was at. I was laughing at the screening I was at. There's so many bizarre lines and, I don't know, just plot choices when he shows up out of nowhere at a farm and that she went off to hide in. And the excuses is that, like, I mean, essentially I put some clues together or something like that. It was so bizarre. I mean, that whole sequence... Every sequence in that barn really feels like something out of a parody movie.
I made a list.
So stupid.
I made a list of some elements from this movie that really made me laugh. One, in those barn sequences, when Kate has her dark night of the soul, Glenn Powell gives a speech. Taylor Owens gives a speech. Should I get my hat? No, I threw it too far away. Taylor Owens gives a speech where he's like, you know, an EF1 tornado, EF2.
Oh, God.
Those aren't classified in that way because of the wind or the size. They only classify it after the fact by the amount of damage it gets done. Dude, she fucking knows. That is the last person you needed to explain it to. That scene would be as if you had two movie directors, like two Hollywood movie directors. If it was like a love story if this was the James Cameron, Catherine Bigelow movie, and it's them playing themselves, and he turns to her and he goes, you know, when movies get their ratings, R, PG-13. It's not the actors who give the ratings. it's a ratings board. Like, it's just, she fucking knows.
There's also a scene where in the same barn, the barn is a treasure trove of cringe. There's a scene where he apparently has a model in his computer that can like figure out the trajectory of a twister or something, and then like they put in some numbers into it, like to change it up. But the way they type into the model or into the laptop clearly is like neither of these people has ever operated a computer. It's like a grandma. It was just so stupid. I can't even believe that these people move in the world.
That's like how his truck has a animated display, or no, I guess it was Anthony Ramos's truck has an animated display that explains everything. Like, who is that for in the company? Let's go back and forth. We can go back and forth on our favorite very dumb moments from Twisters. My next one is the needle drops and how every song, and I gather these are mostly real country songs, but every song is chosen because it perfectly communicates what just happened in the scene. Too much. You could do that maybe once, but every single scene is like, well, I guess I'm going to go back home to Oklahoma. Going home to Oklahoma. I don't like you, Taylor Owens. She don't like you, boy. Oh no, there's a twister up there. Oh no, Daisy Edgar Jones, Anthony Ramos, and Glenn Powell being chased by a twister. It's constant.
I also don't understand how a car, I guess, sort of bolted into the ground, can sustain a Category 5 twister, yet they can't build houses that do. It's totally obscene to me that a car is very much intact, but then a whole town is in shambles as if Godzilla went through it. I know that those towns do get destroyed, so I'm not like saying those people are stupid. What I mean is that car would have also been destroyed entirely.
Well, now it's funny, Veronica. Right? You mention a Category 5 storm. The interesting thing about EMF 5 storms, they're not classified by the wind
EMF
speed.
storm is the best storm, and I classify it later.
Okay, my next thing, during the shocking Paul Scheer cameo at the end of the movie.
Oh my God.
The TSA is going to blow your car up, dude. You can't just park a truck in front of an airport and then bolt it to the ground and run away from security. You are going to get tackled to the ground. You are going to get shot, and they are going to blow up your fucking car. You are actively a terrorist at that point. I know you think it's a cute rom-com moment, but you cannot do that.
Yeah, it was also just why even weld your car to the thing? Like, worst case scenario, they tow your car. You don't have to move your car. It just seems like such overkill. It's such a dick move of just like, I hate pavements, so I'm also going to ruin the pavement. I don't know. It was also, but yeah, like, why Paul Scheer? Is he like a big Twister fan or something? Is that why?
Maybe.
Like, why is he in this movie? I don't know.
I wonder if
bizarre.
It felt like they were just like, oh, hey, we got this tiny role. You know what? That'd be a fun role to just let the actors riff. Let's get an improv comedian in there. And then they cast Paul Scheer, and he and Glenn Powell for like 5 hours just riff on, get out of the car. No. And then they're in the editing bay, and they're like, well, we can't have any of this in the movie. And so suddenly it's like, why was Paul Scheer there?
See, I feel like it was it was different. It was like they hired Paul Scheer for that purpose, and then they realized that Glenn Powell has no comedic timing. And they were like, oh, he can't improvise for shit. All right, well, I guess now you're just an exasperated parking attendant. Or
Now,
I guess was it?
He was. I guess he was constructing. He was TSA. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's the person who yells at you to move your car. I also, when she storms off at after like discovering about the bad developers and whatnot, she like straight up takes someone else's car, and then they refer to that later, but it's still like, what is happening?
She steals Javi's car. Clearly, they were writing the script and they're like, and you have the bullet points, and they're like, yeah, she goes home. And we set up that she has trouble with her mother. She hasn't gone home because she still feels guilt. So then at this point, she goes home, and then they're like writing it, and they're like, wait, how does she go home? Oh no. She steals Javi's car. That makes her seem mean. Let me skip ahead 20 pages. She apologizes to Javi for stealing his car.
Also, this is very minor, but in the prior scene where they're hiding in the pool, there's a lot of suspense around going down the little ladder that leads down to the bottom of the pool. And then at the end of the scene, when the camera kind of like pans out, there's an aerial shot of the destruction in the pool. You can see that a few feet down, there's like a big sort of like stairwell type thing. Then you can like walk down to the pool via. So like, it's crazy that they're like coaxing this child like carefully to go down a ladder. Meanwhile, they could have literally looked to the side and be like, oh, we could all run down together. This is a very wide stairwell.
Do you have any more real stupid things? I just have some things I noticed after this. I don't have any more solid stupid things.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just a lot of it. Just a lot of it. All right. Yeah. What else do you have? Maybe I'll come up with some more stuff.
I don't like. Her whole story didn't really work for me. Her like, I'm so sad about my dead friends, and therefore I can't do something. Oh, she thinks she got something wrong. It feels so perfunctory, and I thought it was very funny that we got the classic dead wife video scene. The classic trope where the main character watches a video of their dead wife. You know, the police detective watches a video and it's just his wife like dancing and cooking and being like, baby, I love you. I'm never gonna die. It's that. But very weirdly, in this version, it's the only one I've seen where the person watching the dead wife video is the wife and it's actually the cameraman who died. They weren't married, but she's remembering her dead friends and watching a video that her dead boyfriend took of her. And I guess the idea, because you're not really mourning her friends, she's mourning how happy she used to be and how confident she used to be. And I don't really have a complaint there. It's just something, I think, because the story wasn't really working. It just made me really think about the weird subversion of that trope.
Does she actually watch a video? I know that she opens the barn and then we cut to what looks like a video, but do we ever actually see her watch it?
Yeah, because it's a video where where she's saying some science shit and her boyfriend's like, see what I have to deal with?
No. I recognize it, but I feel like we never actually see her like put on the tape or shut it off. We just have that clip that's kind of like set up as one of those home videos, but I feel like we never actually see her. It's just a thing that happens and we're supposed to assume that that's what it is. I don't know. Maybe I missed her turning it off, but it definitely like she opens the barn and it cuts into the video quality of the barn. And then I'm pretty sure we just like kind of that part ends. But I don't know. It was kind of, but it does remind me that when she says like she can't do this again because she failed or whatever, right? The first time, it was like, dude, you were a graduate student and a calculation you've done is not accurate the first time you tried it. Oh my God, what a shocker. We all expected you to nail it at once. It was like so dumb. It's like, oh, you tried once, failed horribly, but that doesn't mean anything. It's just
I get where she's coming from. People may know I did theater in college. And I wrote my first play, and it was a comedy. We were really excited about it, and was performing it with my girlfriend and my nerdy best friend and my carefree best friend. And the first scene, the jokes weren't as funny as I expected. And then they all died. And it took me a long time to write another play because I saw them all brutally die on stage. I mean, obviously not dead. They just like the jokes didn't hit.
Yeah, they didn't kill.
But then they did die after the show, but that was a car crash.
Sorry. What a great thing you told me now on our
You think it's funny that the wind was so
movie
strong
podcast.
that it blew the evil blonde highlights out of Kate's hair?
Is that what happened? Did you notice that
I
hair changed?
was tracking it. They made an active choice. When we first see her in New York, she is cold blonde to show how different she is, and that 5 years have passed. And as the movie progresses, she gets more down to her roots. Literally.
Ooh. Though I did notice that her science notebook had in big letters in a blue Sharpie, it said like chemistry. Or no, it was said climate science. It's like, how old are you? What is this? This is so stupid.
Well, she apparently made that full-size town model with a working tornado in middle school, which is very funny.
What does her mom do? Is she a farmer? What is their deal?
Oh my God, we haven't talked about the worst part of this movie. A thing that a lot of people have pointed out. And this is actively gross. All my other complaints about this movie are that they're just silly nitpicks. This is actively kind of disgusting. In the plot of this movie, as in real life, worse and worse storms are hitting the planet and affecting human beings and killing them and ruining their homes. And the characters, like Maura Tierney, talk about how there are more and more storms. Why are there more and more storms? Veronica, do you know why there are more and more storms?
Should I? Is this a trick question? I don't know why. Climate change?
Shh, Veronica, shh. We can't say the words climate change. They have done interviews. People have asked the director, Lee Isaac Chung, coming straight off the last action hit, Minari.
That is so ridiculous.
They asked him, why don't you say climate change in the movie? Even though the entire plot is about how there are worse and worse and more storms. And he said, I don't think we need politics in our big blockbusters. Because apparently mentioning climate change is politics. Not only that, in one of the scenes where they should mention it, Maura Tierney's lines are, Every year, these storms get worse and worse, and more destruction. Also, the price of seed has gone up. but I'm still here. So you could feel them on set being like, oh no, guys, our dumb red state audiences. Because to be honest, I'm not calling them dumb. The movie thinks you're a fucking idiot, red staters, that you're going to get so scared about the smell of politics, of someone maybe saying climate change, that they have to instantly go, no, inflation is the problem. Don't worry, the price of seed is the problem. It was the stupidest part of a very stupid movie.
That is so crazy. I mean, just the fact that climate change is political. Like, you think you not mentioning climate change is going to mean that it's not going to come for you? This is so stupid.
It would be as if you made a movie about, like, students having to learn, like, someone's talking about, like, every year, more and more people get shot in our schools and children are dying. What are they shot by? Also, the trans agenda has gone too far. Like, it's fucking insane.
Yeah, that is so bizarre. I mean, this is, I guess, a little bit related to that in a way that it paints the locals as dummies. But it really seems, especially in the last scene when the town of El Reno, is that right? Anyway, there's a little town, the most American place that ever Americaned. There's a t-ball game happening. There's a flag parade. There's like a tiny streetcar and a market, and everyone salutes the flag and all that. And these people see a tornado on the horizon and they panic. These people who live in a place called Tornado Alley, we are expected to believe that these people have never encountered this before, are not absolutely prepared for what to do, need like people to drive into town to tell them that you need to like hide under the ground. Like, these people know all of it. A. B, these people would have known hours ago that this is happening. Like, no one would have been playing freaking baseball when they know that a tornado is coming. I feel like this movie every time makes the local populations seem like bumbling fools in dire need of YouTubers or coastal elites to come and like rescue them like from tornadoes that they don't know how to handle. And it's so dumb. Like, I expect these people know exactly what to do. There's not going to be any, I mean, obviously there would be destruction, but there's not going to be like this panic. And he's like, oh, Glenn Powell, tell me what to do. Please, Glenn Powell, where do I go? I don't know. It's just, it was so dumb.
It goes back to the laziness of the movie of inorganically making the YouTubers super activists. Like, you have to make the townspeople so fucking dumb because we need to see that our main characters are heroes. Like, everyone who is not a main character always does the wrong thing in the tornadoes, and only our main characters can tell them to do the right thing. It is a dumb thing. But you know what? I've been very negative, and again, I don't hate this movie. So let me say, first one had a great scene at a drive-in movie theater. This one is a regular movie theater, and they rip off the back wall, and I think that's a great visual. Also, the first movie, they were watching The Shining. In this movie, they're watching Frankenstein. And I saw in the AV Club, they had an article, Why is Twisters Obsessed with Frankenstein? And somehow, I don't think they pointed out, you know why? Because in 2025, Universal Florida is opening a theme park with an entire Universal Monsters themed section that they have spent hundreds of millions of dollars on, and they need to keep those characters in the public consciousness. There's your answer. It's synergy, and I would say clever synergy. So a tip of the cowboy hat to you, Universal Pictures and Twisters. Now, Veronica, shall we rate this fucking movie?
I was just going to say, I thought that was because it was just in the public domain and they were too cheap to pay for something that was more thematically accurate. I don't know. It's old. Most movies go out of... Anyway, not important. Yes, let's rank it.
The movie might be. I think Boris Karloff's makeup certainly isn't. The flat-headed Frankenstein, I think, is not. Okay.
All right.
Here we go. 3, 2,
1.
C plus. C plus. B minus if you're drunk with friends.
C minus. B minus. How dare you?
I'm saying C plus. B minus if you're drunk with friends. That's my qualified.
All right. I thought you were tarring me with the B minus brush, and I will not give this movie.
Don't worry, Veronica. I'm not here to argue with you about Twisters. I'm here to really make you upset with what we talk about next.
Ooh.
Because headline, True Lies does not hold up.
Really? I don't know. That's not my headline.
That's my headline. Sorry. I'm sorry. I loved this movie as a kid. It really did not work for me now. Not really. It's a James Cameron action movie. The action scenes are incredible. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger at his peak. Jamie Lee Curtis at her peak. Tom Arnold at his
one of her peaks. Well, that should not be.
Wait, are you referencing Jamie Lee Curtis's breasts? Does Jamie Lee Curtis have
a career resurgence?
Breasts? Oh, I thought you were just referencing. I thought you were just referencing the fact that this movie co-stars Jamie Lee Curtis's cleavage.
No, she had it was like a fish called Wanda, True Lies, that was a peak, and then Freaky Friday, that was like a big thing for her. She won an Oscar. She has many peaks. She has 3 breasts. She has 3 breasts, John. Actually 4. Like, what about the original Halloween? Like, that's 4 peaks.
And you know what? I would say her performance on The Bear as Woman Who Screams Constantly, that's equal to 8 breasts right there.
I look forward to her winning an Emmy, like all the people from The Bear, but next year, I guess.
We have enough hot takes on this episode. Let's not piss off any more listeners. True Lies.
Oh, yeah. We all know, is it Jeremy Allen White? He listens, I'm sure.
Yeah. No, I meant more people who love The Bear, although I think we're not talking about The Bear. True Lies. So yeah, all that stuff is great. I think we talk about like the Avatar movies and being like, James Cameron makes such simple, childish movies. This is James Cameron trying to make an adult comedy. And I think James Cameron is one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. I think he's bad at making an adult comedy.
I mean, I don't disagree about that. I would disagree on that being what he made. I never thought this movie is goofy as heck. I mean, is it rated R? I assume so. But I don't this movie is goofy AF. I think this is just like a very silly romp. I know that there's I don't know if he intended for it to be kind of pretty mocking of action movie stereotypes and shit, but that's definitely how I perceived it watching this. This movie is so over the top and so ludicrous that I don't know. I just can't help but laugh at how silly it is. And the fact that the action is so competently made, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. I mean, yeah, this movie is, it's not subtle. It's not subtle with its comedy. It's not subtle in its depiction of its villains, but it's not subtle in anything. But I don't know. I dug it. I still dug it. I was actually surprised.
Well, my problem is the tone. I think this is one of the most angry divorced man movie ever made. I was shocked to find out that this wasn't made while James Cameron was getting a divorce. This was actually made a few years later when he had already moved on to his next wife. But
he was planning it. It's a few years. What is it? 3 years later, he divorces Linda Hamilton.
Yeah. The first half of this movie is so mean. The amount of times women are slapped and called bitches in the first 45 minutes is insane. The wish fulfillment.
But you're not supposed to think like, oh, this is like a good thing to do. This is like what an upstanding person does.
No, I know. Look, I think it's an unnecessary thing for the bad guy to call Tia Carrere a bitch instantly after he slaps her. But like Tom Arnold and Arnold Schwarzenegger are also constantly calling women bitches, mostly Tom Arnold. But like
he was getting through a divorce, allegedly. Like the whole I divorced. My wife took away the ice cubes when she moved. Apparently, Roseanne did that to him. Apparently,
the next line is, "What kind of psychotic bitch takes the ice cubes?" That's the next line.
Yeah, I mean but those men are supposed to not be good. Like,
well, I think that's the problem. That is the problem. The movie, like the pacing is very weird because it is the plot of a French farce. Literally, it is a remake of the French farce La Totale, which came out 3 years earlier. Here's a fun detail. True Lies was, when it came out, the first movie to ever have a budget over $100 million. So the most expensive movie of its time. What do you think La Totale cost?
I don't know, 250 francs.
True Lies cost somewhere between $100 and $120 million. The original from 3 years earlier cost $12 million. And I think that's right, because I think this movie should have been more comedic and like something. The fact that then it takes its action weirdly seriously kind of like feels weird to me. Also, big complaint, when your main couple kisses in front of a nuclear explosion, the movie's over. We do not need 25 more minutes. And if we're doing 25 more minutes where they have to save their daughter, if the whole fucking movie is this couple has to get back together and learn to be spies, why doesn't the wife come to save the daughter too? It should be them working together.
I mean, that's the thing. I feel like it is kind of Jamie Lee Curtis's movie in many ways. I feel like the scenes that I remembered were all Jamie Lee Curtis scenes. I mean, there were scenes with Arnold, but they were like, I guess I remembered the horse. But otherwise, it was like the strip scene, all the Bill Paxton stuff, and the tango at the end. It was, all of those are iconic, and I think she does a wonderful job. And to illustrate that, we have the last tango scene where Arnold moves like a Terminator robot, learning how to move his limbs, and Jamie Lee Curtis is like basically like pirouetting and like does splits around him in like the most elegant manner. I mean, that is kind of that movie in a nutshell. Like he like does all the like the big macho stuff, rah rah rah, and she like comes in and like this elegant and like funny and sexy woman. And yeah, I wish we had more of her for sure. But I feel like while I'm not saying the intention of James Cameron was to make fun of the Arnold like stereotype or like the big muscle man stereotype, especially because I don't think that was the environment at all at that time that it was made. But watching it now, for me, that movie is maybe unintentionally, but is very much, if you made a movie like that today and you wanted to make a commentary on these like action movies of the past, you would not need to change much about this movie. Like, but I don't. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. Were you done?
I mean, no. All I wanted to say is that like this movie is a perfect encapsulation of the excess and the problems that exist in that genre, and I feel like this movie to me seems like it's playing off of these tropes, or at least it's aware of what it's doing enough. Maybe it's not, but I choose to view it that way. And I think for me, it works that way.
I think it's a weird thing because I'm sure I've said the exact opposite argument in other movies, like saying like, oh, if you're making a horror comedy, you can either decide to like, is it more horror, more comedy, or are you trying to make both work? Is it an action comedy? Make the action. If it's a parody, make the elements you're parodying almost as good or nigh close. Nigh close is what I just said. Real smarty. But I think there's something like this feels like actual Arnold action movie, very weird comedic beat where racist terrorist stereotypes shoot a rocket the wrong direction. Actual Arnold action movie. I
think that is actually not the most racist part. Can I just talk about that?
It's absolutely not.
The most racist part is where they stand around in what looks like an enclosed space and just like shoot their guns in the air for like 5 minutes.
Even in 1994, this movie was being called out for its depiction of...
I mean, I was like, oh, it can't be that bad. And like, no, there are a bunch of scenes that are, you know, a tiny, tiny rung below like Durka Muhammad Jihad in Team America World Police.
I'm pretty sure Team America World Police was directly thinking of this movie when they made it. But I think my problem is like the comedy isn't as... I think the comedy should be more throughout the action moments. You can maybe have your first action scene setting up that he's a spy. Look, I'll give you this. This is a much, much better romantic spy movie than Argyle. I will give you this. And
well, the bar is so low you can walk over it.
It's hard for me to say these things because there's so many parts of this movie that work really well. They just don't tie together for me. Not as much as they did when I was younger.
You don't think there's humor to some of the action scenes? I don't mean in the, you know, Mr. Freeze level quips that Arnold says, but rather the actual choreography of the action scenes. I feel like there's a lot of actual fun stuff. Well, there's the horse, which is a classic, but I feel like there's a lot of those elements where they're being kind of playful, where you think like, oh, this is how we're gonna like off this bad guy, but it's actually gonna be something with a bit of a twist. I think there are a bunch of those throughout that are pretty fun that I was surprised by, to be honest.
They're throughout. I don't know. I just, speaking of his quips, he kills the main bad guy by shooting a rocket with him on it, and he says, "You're fired." He never worked for you. That only makes sense if at some point he like pretended to be your employee or something. It doesn't work. You're fired.
I mean, it also doesn't work where I think he just like kills a guy very like normally and just tells him chill out. But there was no excessive heat involved or excessive cold involved. It was just a regular I think he just like knocked the guy on the head or something. And it was just like, this is weird. I mean, in retrospect, it's even weirder considering that there's a pretty big overlap with the quips from Batman and Robin and these quips. And you're like, was he practicing? Was it already... Yeah, I don't know.
I'll give you this. To me, the best scene in the movie is a Jamie Lee Curtis scene that you haven't mentioned yet. It is the scene where she has a long speech about how disappointed she is with her life. And it is, I think, really the one scene in the movie that gives that character much dignity. Because, like, when she drops the gun, like, it's a funny beat where the first time she kills someone, she drops a gun and it shoots everyone. That's a funny joke.
Yeah.
But in slow motion, we keep cutting back to her going, just way too many times, to the point that it's like, it's not like, aha, she's inexperienced. It's like, oh, she's a fucking idiot. And it's the same thing with her at the end trying to get onto the helicopter, where she's just squealing and screaming for so long. And it's just like, it would be better if, it would be one thing if they then took her on the mission at the end to save the daughter. It would honestly be better without that whole sequence because it goes on too long. But I don't know.
That's Primo Eliza Dushku work. How dare you?
Well, no, we're not going to talk about the behind the scenes stuff that happened. If you want to really bum yourself out, look up what happened behind the scenes on this movie involving Eliza Dushku. It's a bummer. Don't. You know what? Don't. Do. People should. It sucks. Anyway. What was I going to say? Yeah, I don't know. It's just there's also the pacing issues because the plot is so absurd. He's a spy. His wife doesn't know, but then she's having an affair with a guy who pretends to be a spy, and then the husband tries to pretend to be a bad spy to force her to be a spy as a way to get back together, and then they both get arrested by people who think they're both spies. That's very complicated. And it makes the movie very slow to kind of get through it all. Like, it feels like Bill Paxton should be involved the whole way through. It feels like we should be spending less time with the terrorists. We should be spending less time with the terrorists for many reasons. But I don't know, just as a farce, the tone is off, the pacing is off. I think James Cameron is so remarkably talented. Everyone who made this movie is so remarkably talented. I think James Cameron is maybe working slightly outside of where his direct talents lie. True lie.
So you didn't even like Charlton Heston with an eye patch?
I want to know who else they went to. They definitely, this feels like one of the many scenes, like there are like 20 movies where they're like, we asked Sean Connery first, and you watch it, and like the script's clearly written for it to be a Sean Connery cameo, but they didn't get him. I wonder who they asked before they asked Charlton Heston.
You don't think Charlton Heston gets the call first? He's pretty big.
He's big, but was he like a spy? Did he ever play a famous spy?
No, but he's like in the NRA and stuff, right? Like, maybe
I don't think he was famous for that at the point. And I might be really forgetting a famous spy movie he was in. I just don't think of him as a spy.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it being Sean Connery. I don't know, but he's British. Those are entirely different spy organizations. Well, I don't think we need...
Who exactly do they work for in this movie? They work for...
the super secret spies.
Oh, the Omega Sector. So...
the Omega Sector.
I think, like, more stuff should have been as silly as the Omega Sector, a spy organization with a guy with a eye patch over his eye. I think a movie with this premise done closer in tone to the TV show Archer, I think would have been better. And that's a show that actually, as it continued, had some pretty impressive action sequences. But I think too much of this movie did not need to be $120 million. I think that's not where the priority should have lay. But look, it's still... These are both movies that I have big problems with, but they're still both incredibly competently made. And I would not have any problem with anyone saying either of these movies are like movies they love.
Phew, thank God. All right.
Yeah, I'm not ending the podcast over True Lies, don't worry.
I think it's very fun. That's all I have to say. I mean, yeah.
No, I've been very negative. Why don't you talk about why you love this movie?
I just think it's super silly fun. I feel like we don't really... I just love that it's from a period in time where we all collectively agreed for a movie that is very xenophobic about certain types of people, it also just is perfectly happy with having a giant man with an Austrian accent to be playing like, and this was like a period of like 20 years that basically Arnold Schwarzenegger was the most American of action heroes. And I don't know, I find that kind of wholesome and charming in some ways, even though it's totally bizarre and I can never really, what's the word I'm looking for? Truly kind of let myself accept that. Because I'm a giant xenophobe, of course. No, but it's kind of silly, like, or when he's in Jingle All the Way or in The Kindergarten Cop. But I find something so funny about it. I think the action sequences are great. They're very playful. Like, if Marvel Cinematic Universe had half of the stuff that they do here, it would be so much more fun of a franchise. I actually like the fact that they kind of let go of the terrorist plot for a little bit, and we get to live in this like almost like 20-minute subplot with Bill Paxton. And it's just like to the point where you're like, oh yeah, they're terrorists. Like at the end when they kind of break in on their kind of rendezvous. And I kind of like that choice. I think it worked in the movie. I kind of liked how we kind of learned to kind of live in that world a little bit. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in it that I enjoy. I recognize that, you know, people find some stuff problematic about it. I do, but I don't think it precludes me from like having a very good time watching it. And maybe it's because we just like don't really see movies like that anymore. Maybe I'm giving it more of a benefit of the doubt that I would otherwise, but here we are.
You know, I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm going to put this out there. Paul Verhoeven's True Lies. Now, that is a movie that has the correct balance of dark humor and action.
Yeah, we should see it. Let's get him in on it. It's ripe for a remake. It's been 30 years. They've are
already
clamoring.
remade it multiple times. There was a TV show. There were multiple remakes. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, kind of a remake. And that's
God,
also
that
been
movie
remade.
sucks.
I'll say one thing about True Lies. It's made from a different era, and you can tell because it's an era before face replacement. So throughout that whole horse chase sequence, there are just slow motion shots of a man who's not Arnold Schwarzenegger riding a horse for like 10 straight seconds.
I thought you were gonna say they were using an entirely different horse.
You could tell that was a stunt horse. That wasn't the famous celebrity horse.
It wasn't Lucky Brewster. I recognize him anywhere. All right. Well, shall we
rate True Lies?
Yes.
All right. Three, two, one.
A.
B with some A- elements.
Ooh, all right.
I cheated with my ratings, with both my ratings in this one.
All right. Well, John, what have you seen recently?
I'm going to try to bulldoze through these because I have a hard out this week.
Ooh, a peek behind the scenes.
I saw Love Lies Bleeding, which I thought was fun. I thought it was a fun movie. Did I talk about that last time?
I don't think you have. Or did.
I saw the movie Longlegs. And I want to say that I love it. That people are going to the movie theaters. And I love when horror movies make a lot of money. But I want to read a quote.
Oh boy, here we go.
I have to find this quote. I should have had this set up. But this was a quote that, oh my God.
That Oz Perkins,
Do you
son of Anthony Perkins, famously.
Okay. So Longlegs is a horror movie, just made a lot of money, written and directed by Osgood Perkins. Yes, the son of Anthony Perkins. And this is a quote. Someone asked him if he liked recent horror movies. And he said, I wouldn't say I'm someone who likes or dislikes horror movies. I don't see new ones. I have no interest. I'll never see Maxine. I'll never see Pearl. I saw X for reasons. It wasn't on purpose. I don't see contemporary things. They don't interest me at all. And that's not to say that they aren't great. I'm sure they are great and make a lot of people happy, which is all that really matters. But I like the horror genre because it's the genre that permits the most invention and it encourages the most poetry. It's all guessing and grasping at what is essentially unknowable. And I'm just going to say that if you are going to give a quote where you shit on all your contemporary peers, specifically shit on 3 movies by one contemporary peer, and you are a Nepo baby, and you have made a number of movies that weren't very well received, you better hope that the movie you give this quote in support of really has the fucking goods. Longlegs does not have the goods. The first half is very, very creepy. Very exceptionally creepy. And he is an excellent director, and it's excellently edited, and it has excellent sound editing, sound design. Then the second half comes, and I've been too negative on this podcast, so we'll leave it at that. Veronica, what have you seen?
All right. Well, I saw a little movie called Coherence. Have you ever seen it?
What is that?
It's pretty cool. I think you should check it out. It's a very clever premise. Basically, the idea is that there's a bunch of yuppies in what seems like a Bay Area type home. They're doing a dinner party. All the while, there's a comet that passes above them, above the planet. And this comet actually creates like a glitch, essentially meaning that the power goes out and the only house on the block that also has power that they walk towards, they see themselves in. And so they basically realize that anytime they leave the house, there's kind of a multiplicity effect. And it's very interesting as they kind of try to rationalize what's happening, then figure out who's who. Are they like, do they belong to this house or to another house or to another house and to another house? And yeah, and kind of how it's very clever. One of the stars is Nicholas Brandon from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Another Buffy reference on this episode. And it's a very clever premise for what seems like a tiny budget. And very cool. Check it out. I think it's been compared to Primer, which I have not seen. So if that is your thing, I did finally see Maxine, which I enjoyed the ton out of the aesthetics.
we saved our whole conversation, and now I don't have we were last episode we were gonna talk about Maxine, and I have so much to say, but I gotta leave soon.
All right, well, you can talk about it next time. You go first. Well, I love the aesthetics of it. I thought it was cool. I love that era, like film wise, in terms of just like seeing movies made in that era or seeing movies referencing that era. So all of that I loved. I love the Hollywood stuff. I don't think it was A, scary, or B, like surprising. I kind of knew who the villain was from like the first scene, basically. So none of that suspense was there for me. And I was not at any point like in suspense. Whereas I feel like in X and Pearl, I was very much like, there's still scenes in X that I think about that I'm like, oh my God. I think we watched it together and like screamed at the theater. I think I think he's also so good at that. I think Ty West is such a talented what is it, aesthetist. Like he's very good at capturing like the fabric and the texture of an era and going with it. But he's also very good at scaring the shit out of you or like keeping you in suspense. And I feel like there was very little of that in this movie. And it also seemed like a lot of the kind of commentary, quote unquote, was pretty on the nose. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of how I felt about it.
Yeah, I love X. I love Pearl. I think I said in the last episode that I found this one very fun. And I did. And it's incredibly fun to watch. I saw it for reasons. No. It is very fun. But it did not feel like a trilogy capper because it didn't feel like it really captured the thematic elements of the first two and took them to anywhere new. And I told you I have one change that I think would have made a big difference. And I'm going to throw it out there. Check this out. I love Elizabeth Debicki, but take about 80% of her lines away from her. All of her lines, it's nothing against her, but or keep them and limit some of the screen time for Kevin Bacon. But basically, take all the stuff that Debicki's character says, the director, about like, oh, you better fix what's happening, or you're gonna miss your chance. Take that all away from her, and instead give it to the voice of old Pearl that Maxine sees in like speaking in her head.
Interesting.
Because the trilogy is the Maxine and Pearl trilogy. And this movie does not have Pearl except for spooky hands in one of the best creepy scenes of the movie. So I think let's get the interplay between the two that we got at the end of X of Maxine screaming, "I'll never be like you." Let's get Pearl saying to her, "You're getting older. You're not where you need to be. You're becoming me." And let's see that. And I think that would have made the trilogy as a whole feel more fully connected.
I think to your point, the thing about trilogies that I love is that in the third one, and now I'm quoting for Scream 3, but like it is like your past, you kind of recontextualize. In the third one, you recontextualize what you know about the previous two. And I feel like we didn't really do that at all. And that is one of my favorite tropes about a trilogy, is that like, oh, there's something about the past that we didn't know, which this does somewhat have, but I feel like it's not really as emotionally resonant because it's not really a character that we have known from the past. So yeah, so someone like Pearl or like Pearl adjacent would have been way more interesting. And the last thing I will say, in sort of the same vibe, I finally watched Thief, the Michael Mann movie with James Caan from like 1980, I believe. It was a big inspiration for Drive, and it is very obvious why. It's a very cool movie. It's more of a straight up heist movie as opposed to more of a car chase movie. But it's very cool. It also has interesting undertones about, labor relations that I kind of appreciate. I'm not going to say it much more, but I think the high scenes are very fun. And like just the whole vibe of that movie is very cool. So if you haven't seen it and you're kind of into the whole 80s neon thing, it would definitely scratch that itch.
Okay, cool. Well, we talked about a lot of movies today. I feel like I have like kind of a similar thing for all these of like, they're all movies that I had some issues with, but I get the appeal of them. Like even like Longlegs. Once again, I think the first half is tremendously effective. It's funny how much in that quote he's talking about like horror movies having ideas. And it's like the second half and is like, oh shit, what have they been afraid of? Spooky devil, who has spooky dolls, and the dolls.
Spoilers.
All I'm saying is if you think that movie's plot was effective, try to describe what happened in the last act to anyone and see if they are A, scared, and B, don't think you've just described the stupidest thing ever. But again, excellently directed. Look, Osgood Perkins, the director, I think you're the fucking man. If Osgood Perkins, the director, gave that quote, fine. If Osgood Perkins, the writer, gave that quote,
All right.
What have we got on our next episode?
Well, I believe technically it's another old movie day. And our options are 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy, which... The Village, which could be interesting. Clear and Present Danger, which seems on theme with True Lies. Still Ghostbusters, going strong in 1984. And like two movies that no one knows from the 70s and 60s that I don't think we're going to watch. For Pete's sake, starring Barbara Streisand. It's a screwball comedy. And again, The Carpetbaggers. It was number one, and then something else was number one, and now it's back. So,
well, Clear and Present Danger. That's about secret assassination attempts on the president, right?
I think that's the Escobar one. I maybe that's their goal, but I think it's with like Colombian drug dealers, if I'm not mistaken.
I was gonna say, I don't know, but
I don't actually advocate for us to watch Clear and Present Danger, which I think could not have aged well. I say that as someone who has only seen it once as a child, but yeah, can't imagine.
We will see. We will see. We are rocketing towards My Heart Out. So why don't we end things there, Veronica? Wait, 1 minute.
Oh no! Oh, where did he go?
All right, there, buckaroos.
Boo!
This whole box office
boo.
wrangler. This box office wrangler's got his hat back on. He's ready to hit the dusty trails. Toot toot, everybody.
Bye. I'm sorry. Bye. Movie time.